officially announcing his candidacy for the 2020 Democratic nomination for president.
Amy and I are happy to share with you that I'm running to serve you as the next president of the United States of America. This is a defining moment of truth for this country and for every single one of us.
Joining us right now is former Arkansas governor and former Republican presidential candidate Mike Huckabee. Governor, good to see you this morning. Thanks so much for joining us.
Well, good morning, Maria. Great to be with you. You know, Beto's off to an interesting start. I would say a couple of observations. Number one, from a production standpoint, his opening video was about 7 minutes too long for a single shot. You know, and I'm just looking at it strictly from a production standpoint. His wife was holding his left hand. She should have been holding both of them because his right was so overly animated for a tight shot. So that's the production value. Now, here's the warning to Republicans. Don't take this guy lightly. I believe people will do that at their own peril. He's a very attractive candidate from the standpoint that he's got charisma, and we can make fun of him as saying he's the skateboard candidate, he's all of those things. But he's articulate, he's good looking, he has a catchy name, and I don't know if people remember back in 2008, but there was a guy who had been a really nondescript state senator in Illinois that had never accomplished anything or passed a single bill, was pretty much a non-player in the U.S. Senate, but he made a great speech one time at the Democratic Convention, and he went on to defeat the heir apparent Hillary Clinton and became president for 8 years. So to Republicans who say, don't worry about this, yeah, I'd say Democrats have a history of reaching out and picking a guy that nobody thought had a shot.
Yeah, by the way, where did the name Beto come from? Karl Rove, in his op-ed this morning, writes that his real name is Robert Francis. So we're going to talk to Karl Rove coming up, but I'm just saying.
Well, I mean, it's a name that he took. It has a Hispanic sound to it, but he's basically of Irish descent. But, I mean, if you're in South Texas, saying you're Irish probably doesn't really win you a lot of votes. And if you can identify as Hispanic, I'm sure that's a better move in Texas. But let's remember how close he came in a very blue state like Texas to becoming a senator against an incumbent. That was pretty impressive,
Texas,
to be honest.
was a blue state. Not yet. Governor, you said Texas was
red state.
Yeah. Thank you.
It's early in the morning where I am,
no, I
David.
mean,
you got to remember.
It's looking purple more and more, right? It's looking purple more and more, by the way.
Yeah, it's a red state.
It's a red state.
Yeah.
Well, so far.
But Congressman Cuellar is from one of the border communities in Texas, and then to quote the writer in Texas, Skip Hollandsworth, you've got the People's Republic of Austin.
Well, Austin, their city motto is to keep Austin weird. They do a darn good job of it. It's an anomaly in the state of Texas. If you've been to Texas, you go all over the state, and it's a very conservative state. People wear cowboy boots, and they still have manure on the bottom of them. But you go to Austin, and it's a pretty Tony type of environment.
Right. Exactly.
And the politics of Austin, we very left of center.
Yeah, we won't get into jokes about manure in Texas and politicians. But what is the compelling story about O'Rourke? I mean, Obama, quite obvious. What's O'Rourke, other than he's a good-looking guy?
I don't think he's good-looking, for the record.
Well, look, let me just say, before you answer that, the media is on board with Beto, okay? So O'Rourke spoke to Vanity Fair yesterday. There's a big cover story. It's titled, Beto O'Rourke, I'm just born to do this. He takes on the question of diversity in the 2020 election, saying this, I totally understand people who will make a decision based on the fact that almost every single one of our presidents has been a white man, and they want something different for this country. And I think that's a very legitimate basis upon which to make a decision. So, Governor, well, I don't get that quote, by the way, at all. But what about Steve's question? What is it about Beto other than the superficial idea that maybe he looks like a candidate and he's got a fun name?
Well, you know, to go back to the old movie that all of us saw years ago, The Candidate with Robert Redford, there was a lack of substance, but there was an enormous level of charisma. And in these television days, charisma counts. And I think he doesn't bring a great resume. He was a brief-time congressman. He has no major accomplishments in terms of his legislative career. But the point is, he does light up the stage, and there's a connection that he has with younger voters. Whoever the Democrat nominee is, remember, the main thing they're going to bring to the race is, I'm not Donald Trump. Now, I don't think that that's enough, and I think when it comes down to it, the Democrats are going to overplay their hand so far to the left that even some Democrats...
Quick question on that. You may be right, yes, Governor, about going so far left. What does that mean for Howard Schultz? Could he become, in effect, de facto Democrat nominee, at least for the moderates of the party? How do you see that playing out?
No, he won't.
You don't think he'll go on the Democrat
side?
No, de facto. I mean, he'll be as an independent, but he'll attract a lot of Democrat votes.
But he's too pragmatic for today's Democratic Party. He just doesn't fit their mold.
He won't get the nomination, but could he, running as an independent, would he attract a lot of Democrats who consider him the real Democrat, not the far-left loony that the Democrats are likely to nominate?
If he runs as an independent, Steve, I think that's very possible. And in fact, if I were Donald Trump, I'd pay Howard Schultz filing fee and make sure he gets in the race, because it would be a big, big plus for the re-election of President Trump.
Just really quickly, the most important thing about Beto O'Rourke is his fundraising ability. He spent a record-smashing $78 million and almost beat Ted Cruz in the state of Texas. And a lot of that money, this is according to Open Secrets, 48%, almost $21.4 million of the itemized individual contributions coded for gender came in from chicks, from
this is
females.
a really important point that you're making. You're right. He's a master. But the Democrats are, in general. Look at Nancy Pelosi. Yeah. But that's the point. I think that's the point you're making.
But Joe Biden has historically not been good at fundraising, and it was one of the reasons that some people even discouraged him from trying to take on Hillary Clinton, because he did not have the money, despite having the support of President Obama and people in the White House. He does not have the fundraising chops that even a Beto O'Rourke does.
I got to get to college admissions in a second, Governor. But do you think that the ticket could be Beto Biden? I don't see either of them wanting the VP spot, but initially I thought it was going to be Biden, president.
That's a nice name, B&B.
Yeah, I thought initially it would be the president, the president going, Beto going for president, and I'm sorry, Biden going for president and Beto going for VP, but he doesn't want VP, so. I don't know.
Yeah, everybody says that. You know, the classic answer is nobody ever wants to be VP, but nobody's ever turned it down.
Exactly.
So there you go. I mean, you know, it's one of those things that nobody ever says, gee, I'm running for president because I'd really love to be the vice president.
Laughlin is set to appear in court just moments from now after being taken into custody by the FBI in the largest college admissions scandal by the Justice Department. It is exposing some of the biggest names in Hollywood and in Silicon Valley, one of them being private equity firm executive Bill McGoshin, who is known for advocating social good and ethical investing. He has an ethical investing fund in addition to his other investments. Here now is Mike Huckabee, former Arkansas governor and a Fox News contributor. So this is one that really got me, Governor. Because this is a guy who, you know, makes all kinds of lofty statements. After he made a fortune investing in Spotify and Airbnb and Uber, he started one of those ethical investing funds where they say you can make money and be ethical at the same time. And Bono is involved in it, and this is one of his quotes. He says, "Every dollar is used most effectively, narrowing the gap and advancing progress towards economic inclusion." From that word salad, it came the man who now it's alleged, spent a fortune bribing his child's way into USC, pretending like he was a place kicker, allegedly changing his test scores. What do you think of the hypocrisy here, Governor?
Well, there's a biblical verse, Melissa. Pride goeth before a fall, and this is a pretty big fall for some of these people, especially a person who is claiming to be so ethical. And this is one of the most unethical and disgusting things we've seen in the way of a crime wave in a long time, because it's people who are cheating a system. And it's not just that they're cheating for their kids. That's bad enough. But they're cheating kids who needed a break, who needed a chance, kids that worked hard and tried and made the grades on their own and through their hard work, but they didn't have parents who were shelling out bribe money, and so therefore they didn't get to go to Harvard or Yale or USC. I tell you this, though, those kids, they'll be better off than the kids who got in through some phony process, and I feel for those kids because clearly they didn't get there through merit. they're not going to be able to make it that big in the business world or in whatever career they choose to go into, because nobody's going to be able to keep being there to always bail them out and bribe their way through life.
Yeah.
It's tragic.
So this senior executive from TPG, Bill McGlashan, he was placed on leave from the fund. I don't know how he can recover because he is the face of this, the Rising Fund that is supposed to, the Rise Fund, which is supposed to be all about, righting the world's wrongs. Some of the things that he's accused of doing, prosecutors say he paid $50,000 in order to doctor his son's ACT performance. He made a $250,000 donation to USC, and he faked that he was a place kicker. They said, I'm going to make him a kicker or punter. They'll walk him through with the football. And McGlashan says it's pretty funny. The way the world works these days is unbelievable. He's almost, it sounds like from the tapes with the government, decrying that the world is so corrupt at the same time that he is participating in fraud. And then on the other hand, running a holier than thou fund where they're going to do good, with their profits rather than just, investing for profit. They're going to try and do good works in addition to that.
Yeah, Melissa, I think the arrogance of this guy who pretends to be one thing and clearly is a hypocrite and does something quite the opposite. He said his son's a kicker. I think his son needs to kick his old man in the rear end and say, thanks, Pops, for nothing. You've ruined my life. And this guy may get some kicks when he gets to prison, because I think there's a good chance that some of these folks will end up doing time and not just get a fine. And I'll tell you, I don't like for people to go to prison when it's not absolutely necessary, because, quite frankly, we taxpayers have to pay for it. But sometimes there ought to be an example. There needs to be a real clear accountability for things that have robbed other kids of the opportunity to go to college. And I think some of these people will get frog marched across the federal courthouse lawn.
No, without question. It's funny you mentioned the taxpayer, because one of the things they also did was the way that they funneled this money to the guy was to through a fake charitable donation, and then they deducted it on their taxes. So he took a tax deduction, it's alleged, for having used this money for bribery. So, that's tax fraud on top of everything else. So I think you're right. He faces a long time. Governor, thanks for being on. Appreciate it.